My name is Avinash Ramzan. We're coming to you live from the Artichon Conference Center, where a national recount of votes cast on March 2 is taking place. It's day 16 of that count, and at the end of day 16 today, 88 boxes were counted, taking the overall number to 877. Just to give you a breakdown of how the count went today, for Region 3, 25 boxes, Region 4, 19, Region 5, 17, Region 6, 18, Region 7, 9. The tabulation as of today, the general elections 844 boxes and the regional 820. Of course, there are 2,339 boxes to be counted over a 25-day period. So basically 9 days remaining for a count now of 1,462 boxes. So that's the latest in terms of the count here at the Artichon Conference Center. Of course, the recount of votes cast on March 2. To start our newscast tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Attorney at Law Chandra Sohan. He's one of the founder member of the Federal United Party, and of course he's here for the very first time this week to be part of the recount process. Mr. Sohan, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
There were some issues, sir, about accreditation for your party to be part of the recount process. Talk to us a bit about that process and what led to you being accredited here to be here today.
Well, when we had a briefing of the pro-recount processes, that was about a week before the recount actually started. For those parties which attended, we had asked or indicated to the chairperson at that time that we all wanted our parties to be present. I, at that time, was one of the recount agents for my party in Region 6. So I thought that those of us who were accredited for the general elections, it was automatic that we would have been accredited as well for the recount generally. But then after recount started, we tried to inquire as to why it is that we were not notified that we were going to be a part of the recount. And then we were told that we only constitute Region 6. And as a result of that, we would be eligible only to observe the recount for Region 6. That was not very pleasing to me. I wrote to GECOM on several occasions that we are a political party, which is, we have a general interest in whatever is going on in the country as a whole, the election process per se, and that we ought to have been included in the general observation of the recount. And then up to last week, I wrote to GECOM twice, didn't get a response, and I made several telephone calls. Their phones rang out, and I was told by someone who answered the phone that all the senior officials were at the center here. And I'd managed to get on to one of the senior officials only on Tuesday about midday. And then about 5 o'clock or so Tuesday afternoon, that's when I was told that, yes, the names which I submitted were now accredited to be a part of the recount. So we were expecting to be here yesterday, but being a lawyer, the court system only works occasionally. So we were called out to have to attend court, so that kept us from coming yesterday. So today is the first day that we were able to be here to observe the recount.
Just recap today and what you would have observed.
Well, I went to station number 12, and I was only able to, I got here about midday today, so I was able to observe recounts for 3 boxes. And from what I saw there, I believe that we moved at a decent pace. That station did 6 boxes overall for the day. During the period when I was there, for the 3 boxes which I was part of the recount, we were able to complete about 600 or so. A couple of votes short 600. So I think the process moved in pretty at a decent pace at the station where I was.
Good. So although you weren't here for the first 15 days, I'm sure you would have been following developments here.
I've been watching the news all the time, getting the updates from all the social media, the broadcast media, wherever we can get the information from.
Your thoughts on what has been reported that is taking place here?
Well, I can't speak for what has been happening or what I've been reading, but what I know is that at the first box which I witnessed, one of the major contenders raised about 24 issues with regards to persons who had voted and whatever. But of those objections which were raised, none of them bear fruit. For the remaining 2 boxes, there were no other objections which were raised. So we went through a smooth process after that.
What is party position on the allegations of dead and migrant voters, especially in your area there?
I have some difficulty grasping that, given that I was able to observe what transpired in the polling station, given my own ability to vote. Right. And the process, as far as I know it, your names are called. There are persons who are there around who would have known whether you're alive or you are the person whose name was called.
Right.
When you go there now, they match your ID card against the folio, which has to correspond. And then your ID card number has to correspond with the face. And then you're given the ballot paper, the numbers are called, it's shown to everybody who's there. You go in the little box, you put your X and you leave. So I don't believe that there is room for any manipulating in the polling station itself. If the votes could have been manipulated, if anybody has access to it after voting, well, I can't speak for that. But I find it very difficult to buy that whole thought process that the votes are manipulated or dead people or people who migrated would have voted.
All right, finally, today we had the largest number of boxes counted so far, 88 boxes, but there are still 1,462 to go over a 9-day period. How confident are you can get this process within the 25 days?
I don't see that happening, because if we are at the 16th and we're only about 1/3, if we multiply, we look at the other remaining days, you're looking at another 32 days. If we just take the average based on what we have now, we're looking at about at least another 32 days. Whilst I was inside there speaking to some other persons who have been there from the other political parties, they are telling me about 50 days tops, at least from their estimation, based on what they have seen or at the other stations where they were present. That is what their projection is. So they don't seem to believe that this can be done in any way within that time frame.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. That's Mr. Chandra Sohan of the Federal Party talking to us there about being accredited for this election's recount here at the Ardchang Conference Center. Just a quick recap. Day 16, 88 boxes counted on day 16, taking the overall number to 877. And of course, there are 2,339 boxes to be counted over a 25-day period. So which would mean for the remaining 9 days, 1,462 boxes to be counted here at the Ardchang Conference Center. I'm joined now by Mr. Timothy Jonas. He's the chairman of a New and United Guyana. He's been away from the limelight for a few weeks. Mr. Jonas, on May 8th, you were asked to take a COVID-19 test. You subsequently did a live video, and we didn't see you back in the public limelight since then. You're back here at the Ardchang Conference Center. Just walk us through those last 2 weeks.
Well, I had to smile to myself when it happened, because in our lovely village of Guyana, word spread so quickly. So I did get a letter from the ministry saying that I'm going to try to quote it word for word because it was so obscure. It was reported by several persons that you have been seen displaying symptoms, respiratory symptoms. That's what the letter said. So I don't know who these anonymous persons are and how they did a long-distance medical assessment of me, but that's what the letter said. Now, nonsensical as that is, and even though I know that it was politically motivated and of course it was not true, you can't come back here where such an important event is going on unless you get tested. So I wasn't going to defy that to come back, because that opens the door to too many problems. And the fact is, you have a responsibility to the people here. But then I was in a catch-22. I was between a rock and a hard place, because I promise you, I was not going to go to that ministry to be tested.
Right.
Because I had every suspicion that if I was tested there, I would find myself quarantined, eating tennis roll and jam in the famous government institutions. So I had to wait until the private institutions were up and running. And the government control of the process of testing has been so absolute that it actually took some time for them to get the reagents, for them to get up and off the mark, to do the swabs and all of that. But as soon as they were ready, I went down, I got tested, I got my negative result. Being tested is not pleasant, let me warn you. They take a large something and they put it so far up your nose you don't think it's possible. And then they swirl it around and they pull it back out. So it felt like it was a brain extraction, but it was done, got my negative response, and I wrote the ministry to inform them of that. And I also wrote the medical council, because I believe that there may be medical misconduct in medical personnel either assessing me without consulting me first or taking action on the say-so of anonymous third parties. So that will be dealt with, and as far as I'm concerned, that is now a closed issue. having been tested and gotten my result, I was here yesterday. I was not here today, I got work to do, but hopefully I will be here tomorrow to participate in the process.
Your take on the process so far, from day one to now, the recount process?
I want to direct this to the personalities that are involved. I am of the view very firmly that it would have been easy for the Commission to take decisions to speed this process up, to clearly say to the Guyanese people what the parameters of this recount are, and by narrowing the focus of the recount and the parameters of the recount to get this thing over with quickly. I'll tell you something. On election day, we all went, we stuck our finger in the ink, we put in our ballots, and we went home. And everybody, from Basil Williams to Camarade Ramjatan to King Arthur himself, everybody said that the elections happened fairly and credibly on election day. So the next stage, that having happened fairly, was to count these votes. The votes were counted, and the incumbent grandly announced, got ready for celebrations, they won. They said the count was done properly, and these ballots were properly counted and fairly counted, and they won. What is going on here is that somebody else is counting exactly those same ballots. Not new ballots, not different ballots, those same ballots. Why is it that that is problematic? And all kinds of objections, which can't be dealt with in this forum, are being raised as to if someone voted, how they voted. Processes that involve a screening process that have nothing to do with counting the votes. The only variable here, the only difference, is that when Mr. Mingo counted the votes, you say you won. And no independent people are counting those same votes, problems. So there's only one variable. And the fact that so many obstructions are being put in at this stage tells me, and certainly should tell the whole country, that both sides know the answer already. Both sides know what the outcome of a fair count will be. And if you were happy, a win is a win, said one of the incumbents, not so subtly. A win is a win. But if you were happy with a win is a win when Mr. Mingo was counting the votes, why aren't you happy when somebody else independently counts the same votes? Why are you obstructing? Why are you talking about have to set aside the whole elections? The count hasn't even finished and you're doing that. You have some prior knowledge. And I think that it would have been easy for GECOM to take steps to get this process done quickly. And I'm afraid we are slogging through thick mud, trying to reach a conclusion. And I hope that that is resolved.
All right, you've seen the emergence of dead voters, migrant voters. Mr. Sohan, previous to you, said that that was not possible given the structure on elections day. Your thoughts on the emergence of these types of voters?
Mr. Sohan is absolutely right. It's obvious. We all voted. We know what happened. You go and you show your ID. When you show your ID, the person sitting there looks at it, compares your picture with the picture in her record. She announces your name. Representatives from both camps agree it's you and sign off. You stick your finger in the ink, you go and vote. Everybody sees this, everybody experienced it happen. At what point in that process is somebody to be able to come back twice, having uninked his inked finger, and having altered his face so that he looks like the other person that he's trying to represent? Freddie Kissoon did a wonderful article about it, trying to discuss the logistics of 35,000, because that's the number we're talking about. 35,000 people coming back to vote twice. It's an impossibility. Let me say this. The PPP were the most corrupt regime we had up to 2015. But if the PPP could pull off 35 cosmetic plastic surgeries and have it done in front of 2,000 polling stations, each of which is manned by APNU personnel and GECOM personnel, and there isn't a whisper of a rumor that this happened, they get my vote right away, because they are an incredible outfit if they can accomplish that. It's nonsense. It is so absurd that the incumbent should feel ashamed to even try to put that forward now, especially in light of their grand declaration of victory when Mr. Mingo did their count. I don't know what more can be said about that. We are in fantasy land right now. We're Alice in Wonderland.
Well, finally, Mr. Thomas, talk to us a bit about the presence of the Carter Center. Some are saying in the interest of fairness and transparency, they should have been here. They said today, the Carter Center, that they're deeply disappointed that the government did not give them the approval to come back here to observe the recount process. What is ANUC's position on the Carter Center not being here?
There's an African nation called Burundi. Burundi has been run by a government, same government in place for the last 15 years, same president for the last 15 years. And his tenure has always been subject to criticisms about rigged elections. Their election day is today. 2 days ago, their president, their incumbent president, announced that if international observers wanted to go to Burundi to observe the elections, they would have to subject themselves to a 14-day quarantine because of COVID after they landed in Burundi and before they could look at the elections. That's 2 days ago. The elections are today. This is not a new trick. This is not an original trick. This is not original thinking. This is something that happens every time an incumbent wishes to deceive the people and violate the will of the electorate. It's just a trick that you pull out of the hat. So Burundi is having their elections today with no international observers, and the outcome is a done deal. That is what happened with Carter. Carter was an accredited international observer and was told exactly the same thing. Can't come here. There's no reason to reject Carter. There's no reason to tell Carter you cannot come, except that you do not want the transparency that caused you so much inconvenience the first go around when Mr. Mingo did his thing and Mr. Carter pointed it out, and OAS, and EU, and the Americans, and the Canadians. You don't want that transparency because that is a mighty inconvenience if you want to repeat the process again. So Carter has to stay where he is, and Carter couldn't go to Burundi either. Guyana and Burundi. That's where we are, in the same boat.
Quickly, 1,462 boxes in the remaining 9 days. How practical is that?
This goes back to the ease with which GECOM can narrow this process down. Assad Says Gunraj had made a statement yesterday, quoting the chairman, saying that the chairman had represented that the issue of migrant voters, deceased voters, don't have anything to do with this recount. As of course it doesn't, because all you're doing is counting votes. You're not doing anything else. You are doing, for a second time, what the first set of people who counted the votes are doing. Now, she has come out today. I was relieved when I heard that. I thought that it was a very good move on her part and on GECOM's part for two reasons. First of all, it clears up an area of uncertainty and worry. Because at the back of everyone's mind is that GECOM can suddenly land on us, oh, this thing is not credible, we're not declaring on. And that, of course, although it will fool nobody, including the international community, will lead to a continuation of what has been a rigged process. But it will also narrow the scope so that the time spent on objections, counting names, asking, you haven't been in the workstations, but in the workstations, the APNU representative will ask the GECOM supervisor about 40 names, 40 numbers, if these people voted. And the supervisor has to go through meticulously these 40 numbers to say, these two voted, the other 30 didn't vote. And then the APNU will object on unsubstantiated grounds that they're out of the country without producing any evidence, without anything more, just so that it goes on the record, so that their spinners, and we've seen their spinners, can talk about how this process is discredited. That takes a great deal of time. The actual counting of the ballots is quick. If GECOM can say no definitively as a question of law, as a question of interpretation of their order for recount, that this is not part of the process, it will streamline things and we'll get this done in the time frame. But it is those ancillary irrelevancies that are slowing us down, and GECOM is playing along.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Timothy Jonas, the chairman of a new and united Guyana, talking to us there about the elections recount happening here at the Ardachong Conference Center.